In a world where everyone is constantly trying to control everything, relationships, outcomes, and even other people, many minds are quietly drowning in stress, frustration, and emotional exhaustion. People spend years chasing approval, fixing problems that are not theirs, and holding on to relationships that slowly drain their peace. But Buddhist wisdom offers a different path, a path where freedom begins the moment you release what you cannot control. In this video, you will discover 7 powerful Buddhist lessons that will teach you how to detach from toxic people, protect your peace, and build a life that is no longer controlled by the chaos of others. 1. You cannot pour water into a cracked vessel. Stop trying to fix what is not yours to fix. One of the most exhausting things a person can do is constantly trying to repair people who have no intention of changing. Many individuals spend years giving their time, patience, kindness, and emotional support to someone who continues repeating the same harmful behavior. They believe that if they just try a little harder, explain things better, or sacrifice a little more, the other person will eventually understand and change. But often, the situation stays exactly the same, no matter how much effort is given. This is similar to pouring water into a cracked vessel. Imagine trying to fill a broken pot with water. You keep pouring and pouring, hoping it will eventually stay full, but the water keeps leaking out through the cracks. The problem is not that you are not giving enough water. The problem is that the vessel itself cannot hold it. In the same way, some people are not ready to receive the care, advice, or effort you are giving them. Buddhist wisdom teaches that true understanding begins when you recognize the limits of your responsibility. You can offer kindness and guidance, but you cannot force awareness into someone else's mind. Every person must face their own lessons and grow through their own realization. The moment you stop trying to fix what was never yours to fix, a great weight begins to lift from your mind. Your energy returns, your thoughts become clearer, and you finally begin focusing on your own peace instead of trying to repair someone else's life. 2. The mind that clings to outcomes will always be in pain. One of the main reasons people suffer emotionally is because they become attached to specific outcomes. They expect people to behave in certain ways, relationships to unfold according to their hopes, and situations to turn out exactly as they imagined. When things do not go the way they expected, frustration, disappointment, and stress quickly appear. In life, we often build a picture in our minds of how things should happen. We expect someone to understand us, respect us, or change their behavior after we explain our feelings. But reality does not always follow the plans we create in our minds. When we hold tightly to those expectations, every unexpected result begins to feel like a personal loss. Buddhism teaches that peace begins when we loosen our grip on outcomes. This does not mean we stop caring or stop making efforts in life. It simply means we understand that many things are outside our control. When you stop forcing life to match your expectations, your mind becomes calmer. You learn to focus on your actions and intentions instead of trying to control results. And in that space of acceptance, your inner peace begins to grow. 3. Silence is not absence, it is protection. Many people believe that if someone says something hurtful, unfair, or disrespectful, they must immediately respond. They feel the need to defend themselves, explain their actions, or prove the other person wrong. In moments of conflict, the mind quickly reacts, and words come out before calm thinking has a chance to appear. This constant need to respond to everything can slowly drain a person's emotional strength and disturb their inner peace. In daily life, arguments often grow not because the problem is big, but because both people continue feeding the conflict with reactions. One person says something negative, the other responds with anger, and the situation slowly becomes heavier and more painful. Many people do not realize that their constant reactions are what keep these cycles alive. The more you react to negativity, the more power you give it to stay in your life. Buddhist wisdom teaches that silence can be one of the most powerful forms of protection for the mind. Silence does not mean you are weak, afraid, or unable to respond. It simply means you understand that not every situation deserves your energy. When you remain calm and choose not to engage in unnecessary conflict, you protect your inner balance. You stop allowing other people's words or behavior to control your emotions. Sometimes people say hurtful things because they are carrying their own frustration, anger, or insecurity. If you respond with the same emotional reaction, you become part of the same cycle. But when you choose silence, something different happens. The emotional chain breaks, the conflict loses its fuel, your mind stays calmer, and you avoid carrying the stress of unnecessary arguments. Silence also creates space for clarity. When you stop reacting immediately, you allow your mind to observe the situation more wisely. You begin to see whether the problem is truly important or simply a temporary moment of emotion. Many conflicts that feel urgent in the moment later appear small and unimportant once the mind becomes calm again. Protecting your peace does not always require strong words or confrontation. Often, the most powerful response is simply refusing to participate in negativity. By choosing silence, you are not ignoring reality. You are choosing where your energy should go. Instead of wasting your attention on arguments that lead nowhere, you keep your mind focused on what truly matters. In this way, silence becomes more than just the absence of words. It becomes a shield that protects your peace. It becomes a quiet strength that keeps your mind steady, even when the world around you becomes noisy. And through this quiet awareness, you learn that not every battle needs to be fought in order for you to win your peace. 4. You are not responsible for how people treat you, but you are responsible for how long you allow it. One of the most painful experiences in life is being treated unfairly by someone you once trusted. Many people spend years blaming themselves for the way others behave toward them. They wonder if they said something wrong, if they were not good enough, or if they somehow caused the disrespect they received. This kind of thinking slowly damages a person's confidence and peace of mind. But Buddhist wisdom offers a powerful perspective that can change the way you see these situations. You are not responsible for the way another person chooses to behave. Every individual acts according to their own level of awareness, their own emotions, and their own personal struggles. Some people carry anger, insecurity, jealousy, or selfishness within them, and these inner problems often shape the way they treat others. Their behavior reflects their state of mind, not your worth as a person. However, while you cannot control how someone treats you, you do have control over how long you continue allowing that behavior to remain in your life. Many people tolerate repeated disrespect because they hope the other person will change. They tell themselves that things will improve if they just stay patient a little longer. They keep giving chances, forgiving the same actions again and again, and trying to hold the relationship together no matter how much it hurts them. Over time, this pattern becomes deeply exhausting. Each time the same behavior repeats, the mind becomes heavier with frustration and disappointment. You begin carrying emotional stress that slowly spreads into other parts of your life. Your mood changes, your confidence weakens, and even simple moments of peace become harder to experience. Buddhist awareness teaches that recognizing unhealthy patterns is an important step toward protecting your inner peace. Wisdom does not mean tolerating endless suffering in the name of kindness. True compassion must include compassion for yourself as well. When someone repeatedly brings negativity, disrespect, or emotional chaos into your life, stepping back is not cruelty, it is self-respect. Learning to set boundaries is part of emotional maturity. Boundaries do not mean you hate the other person or wish them harm. It simply means you understand that your peace has value. You are no longer willing to allow someone else's behavior to control your emotional well-being. When you begin protecting your peace in this way, something important changes inside you. Your mind becomes stronger and clearer. Instead of constantly reacting to other people's behavior, you begin focusing on your own growth, your own calmness, and your own path in life. Over time, you realize that you cannot always choose how people treat you, but you can choose how much space their behavior occupies in your life. And the moment you stop allowing repeated negativity to control your peace, you begin building a life that is calmer, healthier, and far more balanced. 5. Detachment is not indifference. It is freedom. Many people misunderstand the idea of detachment. When they hear the word, they imagine becoming cold, distant, or emotionally disconnected from others. They think detachment means no longer caring about people or relationships. But in Buddhist wisdom, detachment has a very different meaning. Detachment is not about shutting down your heart. It is about freeing your mind from unnecessary suffering. In everyday life, people often become deeply attached to others in ways that slowly disturb their peace. They attach their happiness to how someone treats them, how often someone gives attention, or whether a relationship continues the way they expect. When things go well, they feel happy. But when something changes, when someone becomes distant, or when expectations are not met, their emotional world begins to shake. This kind of attachment creates a fragile state of mind. Your peace becomes dependent on circumstances you cannot fully control. If someone praises you, you feel good. If someone criticizes you, your mood collapses. If someone stays in your life, you feel secure. If they leave, your mind becomes restless with pain. Slowly, your emotional stability begins to depend on other people instead of your own inner strength. Buddhism teaches that true freedom begins when you loosen these attachments. Detachment does not mean you stop caring about people. It means you stop making your happiness completely dependent on them. You can still love, support, and respect others, but you no longer allow their actions to control your peace. When you practice detachment, you begin seeing relationships with greater clarity. You appreciate the people who bring kindness, honesty, and positivity into your life. At the same time, you stop clinging to relationships that constantly create stress or emotional instability. Instead of trying to hold everything together through fear or attachment, you allow life to flow naturally. Detachment also brings emotional balance. When your mind is no longer tied tightly to every external situation, you become calmer in both good and difficult moments. Success does not make you arrogant, and disappointment does not destroy your peace. You remain steady because your inner stability no longer depends on circumstances outside of you. This freedom is one of the greatest gifts of detachment. You are no longer constantly worried about losing people, controlling situations, or forcing outcomes. Your mind becomes lighter, more peaceful, and more aware of the present moment. Instead of living in fear of change, you learn to move through life with acceptance and calmness. In this way, detachment is not about rejecting the world or isolating yourself from others. It is about learning how to live with openness without becoming trapped by emotional dependency. When you understand this deeply, relationships become healthier, your mind becomes calmer, and your life begins to feel much more peaceful. Detachment, in the end, is not the absence of care. It is the presence of freedom. 6. The person you are waiting to save you is already inside you. Many people spend a large part of their lives waiting for someone else to rescue them from their struggles. They believe that one day a person will appear who understands them perfectly, supports them endlessly, and somehow removes the weight of their problems. They wait for someone who will heal their loneliness, repair their broken confidence, and give their life direction again. This quiet expectation exists in many hearts, even if people never say it out loud. Sometimes people wait for a partner who will complete them. Sometimes they wait for friends who will finally understand them. Others wait for family members to suddenly become supportive and caring. And many people even wait for the world itself to change before they begin living peacefully. They tell themselves that once the right person arrives, once the right opportunity appears, once someone gives them the encouragement they need, everything in their life will finally become easier. But Buddhist wisdom reveals a truth that can feel surprising at first. The person you are waiting for has always been inside you. Your strength does not come from someone else arriving to fix your life. Your strength grows when you recognize the power already living within your own mind. The calm, the resilience, the wisdom, and the courage you are searching for are not gifts that others must give you. They are qualities that already exist within you, waiting to be awakened. Many people do not notice this inner strength because they have spent too much time looking outward. When life becomes difficult, they search for external solutions first. They look for someone to encourage them, someone to guide them, someone to reassure them that everything will be okay. While support from others can certainly help, relying entirely on others for emotional stability can create deep vulnerability. When your peace depends completely on someone else, your life becomes unstable. If that person leaves, changes, or disappoints you, your emotional world suddenly collapses. You feel lost because the foundation of your strength was placed outside yourself. Buddhism teaches a different path. Instead of building your peace on the behavior of others, you begin strengthening the awareness within your own mind. You begin learning how to calm your thoughts, understand your emotions, and guide your life with wisdom rather than dependence. This inner awakening does not happen overnight. It grows slowly through awareness and self-reflection. At first, you begin noticing how often you search for approval from others. You notice how frequently you hope someone else will solve your problems. This awareness is the first step toward reclaiming your inner power. As you continue growing, you begin realizing that you are capable of handling far more than you once believed. You learn that your mind has the ability to observe pain without becoming overwhelmed by it. You discover that even in moments of difficulty, there is a quiet strength inside you that allows you to keep moving forward. Many people who eventually become emotionally strong share one common experience. At some point in their life, they stop waiting for someone else to change their situation. Instead, they begin taking responsibility for their own peace. They start protecting their energy, making wiser decisions, and creating a life that supports their well-being. This realization is incredibly empowering. When you understand that your strength lives within you, fear begins to lose its control over your life. You no longer feel completely helpless when relationships end or when people disappoint you. Instead of depending on others to carry your emotional weight, you learn how to stand firmly on your own foundation. This does not mean you reject support or kindness from others. Human connection is still valuable and meaningful. But the difference is that your stability no longer depends entirely on it. You appreciate relationships without making them the sole source of your happiness. Buddhism encourages people to develop this inner independence through mindfulness and self-awareness. When you become more aware of your thoughts and emotions, you begin understanding how much power your mind actually holds. You realize that peace is not something the world gives you. Peace is something you cultivate from within. When you meditate, reflect, or simply observe your thoughts calmly, you begin creating space inside your mind. In that quiet space, clarity appears. You begin seeing situations more objectively instead of reacting impulsively. Problems that once felt overwhelming become easier to understand and handle. Through this process, the person you were waiting for slowly reveals themselves. You realize that the courage you needed was always part of your nature. The calm you were searching for was always available inside your awareness. The strength you hoped someone would give you was already living quietly within you, waiting for recognition. Life will always include moments of uncertainty, disappointment, and change. People may come and go. Circumstances may shift in ways you cannot predict. But when you develop inner stability, these changes no longer shake your entire world. You remain grounded because your foundation no longer depends entirely on external support. This realization transforms the way you live. Instead of constantly searching for someone to save you, you begin becoming the person who protects your own peace. You begin making decisions that honor your well-being. You begin trusting your ability to navigate life's challenges with patience and wisdom. Over time, your relationship with yourself becomes stronger than any fear or doubt that once controlled you. The quiet confidence that grows within you becomes a source of calm that no external situation can easily disturb. And in that moment of deep understanding, you finally recognize a truth that Buddhism has been teaching for centuries. The person you were waiting for was never outside of you. They were always within you, patiently waiting for you to discover them. 7. You cannot control other people's behavior. One of the hardest truths to accept in life is that you cannot control how other people behave. You cannot control their choices, their emotions, their words, or the way they decide to treat you. Yet, many people spend years of their lives trying to do exactly that. They try to guide, correct, convince, and sometimes even force others to behave in a way that feels fair or respectful. They believe that if they explain themselves better, if they show more patience, or if they sacrifice more of their own comfort, the other person will eventually change. But more often than not, this effort leads only to exhaustion and frustration. Human behavior is shaped by many things that exist deep inside a person's mind. Their past experiences, their fears, their insecurities, and their personal beliefs all influence how they act. Even if you care deeply about someone, you cannot enter their mind and reshape those patterns for them. Change must come from a person's own awareness. Until they recognize their behavior and decide to grow, no amount of pressure or persuasion from outside will truly transform them. Many people struggle with this truth because they believe that caring for someone means trying to fix their behavior. When someone close to them becomes angry, distant, or disrespectful, they feel responsible for correcting the situation. They begin analyzing every conversation and every interaction, wondering what they could have done differently. This constant effort to manage another person's emotions slowly drains their mental energy. Buddhist teachings remind us that suffering often arises from the desire to control things that lie outside our power. When you attempt to control another person's behavior, you are trying to manage something that belongs entirely to their own mind. This effort creates tension because no matter how hard you try, the final decision about how someone behaves always belongs to them. Imagine holding a rope in a game of tug-of-war. As long as both people keep pulling, the tension continues. But the moment one person lets go, the struggle ends. In many relationships, emotional conflict works the same way. The more you try to control or force change, the stronger the resistance becomes. But when you stop pulling, when you release the need to control another person's actions, the conflict begins to lose its power over your peace. This does not mean accepting harmful behavior or pretending that disrespect is acceptable. Buddhism does not teach passive suffering. Instead, it teaches awareness and wisdom. When you recognize that you cannot control someone's behavior, you gain the freedom to decide how you respond to it. You can choose distance instead of constant conflict. You can choose calm observation instead of emotional reaction. You can choose to protect your peace instead of trying to force someone else to change. Learning this lesson often feels uncomfortable at first. Many people have spent years believing that if they just try harder, they can make things better. Letting go of control can feel like giving up, but in reality, it is not surrender. It is clarity. It is the moment when you stop wasting your energy on battles that cannot be won through force. When you release the need to control others, your mind becomes lighter. You stop analyzing every action someone takes. You stop worrying about whether they approve of you or understand you. Instead, you begin focusing on what truly belongs to you, your own actions, your own choices, and your own inner state. This shift in perspective creates a powerful form of freedom. Instead of being emotionally pulled by every change in someone else's behavior, you remain steady. If someone becomes angry, you do not automatically become angry with them. If someone behaves unfairly, you do not allow their actions to destroy your peace. Their behavior remains theirs, and your peace remains yours. Over time, this understanding changes the way you experience relationships. You become less reactive and more observant. You see people more clearly without constantly trying to reshape them according to your expectations. Some relationships naturally grow healthier when you stop forcing them. Others quietly fade away because the struggle that once held them together is no longer there. Buddhism teaches that true peace comes from mastering your own mind, not from controlling the world around you. When you direct your attention inward instead of outward, you begin developing patience, awareness, and emotional balance. These qualities make your life calmer and more stable, regardless of how others behave. Life will always include people who act in ways you cannot understand or agree with. Some may bring negativity, criticism, or conflict into your path. But their behavior does not have to control your emotional world. When you understand the limits of your control, you gain the ability to step back from unnecessary suffering. In the end, the greatest power you can develop is not the ability to change others. The greatest power is the ability to remain calm and balanced, regardless of how others behave. When you focus on mastering your own reactions instead of controlling other people's actions, you begin walking the path of true inner freedom. And once you understand this deeply, you realize something that changes everything. Your peace was never meant to depend on the behavior of others. Your peace begins the moment you stop trying to control what was never yours to control. Peace begins when you stop carrying what was never yours. One of the quiet reasons people lose their peace is because they carry emotional burdens that were never truly theirs. They carry the anger of others, the expectations of others, the problems of others, and sometimes even the mistakes of others. Without realizing it, they slowly fill their minds with responsibilities that do not belong to them. Over time, this invisible weight begins to exhaust them. Many people develop this habit because they care deeply about those around them. When someone they love is struggling, they immediately feel the need to solve the problem. When someone is upset, they feel responsible for fixing the emotion. When someone becomes distant or negative, they begin questioning themselves and wondering what they did wrong. In their desire to maintain harmony, they slowly take ownership of emotional situations that were never their responsibility. At first, this behavior may seem compassionate. Wanting to help others is a natural part of human connection. But when this pattern continues without awareness, it begins to create deep emotional fatigue. Instead of simply offering support, a person starts carrying the entire emotional weight of the relationship. They begin worrying constantly about how others feel, how others react, and whether others are satisfied with them. Buddhist teachings gently remind us that compassion must be balanced with wisdom. You can care for others without absorbing every problem they carry. You can support someone without making their struggles your own internal burden. True compassion does not require sacrificing your peace in order to manage the emotions of everyone around you. Imagine walking through life carrying a heavy bag on your shoulders. At first, the bag feels manageable, but with every new problem you add, it becomes heavier. Eventually, the weight becomes so exhausting that even simple moments begin to feel difficult. This is what happens when we collect emotional responsibilities that do not belong to us. Many people carry the disappointment of someone who refused to grow. They carry the frustration of someone who constantly complains. They carry the anger of someone who never learned how to control their own emotions. Instead of allowing those emotions to remain where they originated, they bring them into their own minds and carry them every day. Buddhism teaches that awareness is the first step toward releasing this unnecessary weight. When you become aware of how much emotional burden you are carrying for others, you begin recognizing which responsibilities truly belong to you and which ones do not. You begin seeing that many of the stresses you experience come from trying to manage situations that are outside your control. The moment this awareness appears, something powerful begins to change. You realize that you do not have to carry everything. You can still care about people while allowing them to face their own lessons. You can offer kindness without taking ownership of their emotional storms. This shift does not make you distant or uncaring. Instead, it allows you to maintain your inner stability while still showing compassion. When someone is struggling, you can listen without absorbing their pain as your own. When someone becomes angry or frustrated, you can remain calm instead of allowing their emotions to spread into your mind. Over time, this practice of emotional clarity creates a remarkable sense of freedom. Your mind becomes lighter because it is no longer overloaded with problems that belong to others. You begin waking up each day with more mental space and more calmness. Situations that once felt overwhelming begin to appear simpler because you are no longer carrying unnecessary emotional weight. Another important realization begins to appear as well. When you stop carrying what belongs to others, you give them the opportunity to face their own growth. Sometimes people never develop awareness because someone else is constantly managing their problems for them. When you release the responsibility that was never yours, you allow life to teach them the lessons they must learn themselves. This understanding is deeply connected to the Buddhist principle of non-attachment. Non-attachment does not mean rejecting people or withdrawing from relationships. It means understanding the difference between offering support and becoming entangled in emotional dependency. You remain compassionate, but your mind stays balanced. When you practice this awareness consistently, your inner peace becomes more stable. You stop feeling responsible for fixing every situation around you. Instead, you focus on maintaining clarity within your own mind. You begin noticing how much energy returns to you when you stop carrying burdens that never belonged to you in the first place. This freedom allows you to live more calmly and intentionally. Your thoughts become clearer, your emotions become more balanced, and your relationships become healthier because they are no longer built on emotional exhaustion. You interact with others from a place of calm strength rather than constant stress. In the end, one of the greatest acts of wisdom is recognizing what truly belongs to you and what does not. Your actions belong to you. Your choices belong to you. Your peace belongs to you. But the emotions, expectations, and behavior of others are part of their own journey. When you finally stop carrying what was never yours, the mind experiences a quiet sense of relief. The weight that once felt permanent slowly disappears. And in that space of lightness, something beautiful begins to grow. A calm and peaceful life that is no longer overwhelmed by burdens that were never meant for you to carry. 9. Let go of the need to be understood by everyone. One of the quiet struggles many people carry inside their hearts is the constant desire to be understood by everyone around them. They want others to see their intentions clearly, to appreciate their efforts, and to recognize the goodness in their actions. When someone misunderstands them or judges them unfairly, it creates a deep sense of frustration and emotional pain. They feel the need to explain themselves again and again, hoping that if they say the right words, the other person will finally understand their perspective. This desire is very human. All of us naturally want to feel seen and accepted. We want our thoughts and feelings to be recognized. But the problem begins when our peace becomes dependent on whether everyone understands us or not. When we start needing validation from every person around us, our emotional stability becomes fragile. Every misunderstanding begins to feel like a personal attack, and every criticism begins to disturb our inner calm. Buddhist wisdom offers a powerful insight into this struggle. It teaches that not everyone will understand you, and that is completely natural. Every person sees the world through their own experiences, beliefs, fears, and expectations. Their understanding of you is filtered through their own mind, not through the full reality of who you are. Imagine looking at the same landscape through different windows. One window might be clear, another might be foggy, and another might be colored with tinted glass. Even though the landscape outside is the same, each person sees a slightly different image depending on the window they are looking through. Human perception works in the same way. People interpret your words and actions through the lens of their own thoughts and emotions. Because of this, it is impossible to control how everyone understands you. Some people will appreciate your intentions. Others may misunderstand them completely. Some will respect your decisions, while others may criticize them without truly knowing your reasons. If you constantly try to correct every misunderstanding, you may spend your entire life explaining yourself without ever finding peace. Buddhism encourages a different approach. Instead of chasing universal understanding, you begin focusing on inner clarity. When your actions are guided by honesty, awareness, and kindness, you do not need every person to approve of you. Your peace comes from knowing your own intentions, not from convincing everyone else of them. Many wise individuals eventually reach a moment where they stop explaining themselves to people who are determined to misunderstand them. This does not mean they become arrogant or dismissive. It simply means they recognize that some minds are not open to seeing beyond their own assumptions. Continuing to argue or explain endlessly only drains emotional energy. Learning to let go of this need for universal approval creates a profound sense of freedom. You begin realizing that your value does not depend on how clearly others perceive you. Your worth is not determined by someone else's interpretation of your actions. When you understand this deeply, the fear of being misunderstood begins to fade. This shift also changes the way you interact with criticism. Instead of reacting defensively to every negative opinion, you become more selective about what deserves your attention. Constructive feedback that helps you grow can still be valuable, but random judgments or misunderstandings no longer disturb your peace in the same way. When you stop chasing constant validation, your mind becomes quieter. You no longer feel the pressure to prove yourself in every conversation. You no longer feel the need to defend your character against every misunderstanding. Instead, you allow your actions and your life to speak for themselves. Buddhist teachings often emphasize the importance of right intention. When your intentions are sincere and guided by awareness, you can move through life with confidence even when others do not fully understand you. Your calmness becomes stronger than the noise of outside opinions. This understanding also improves your relationships. When you release the need for everyone to validate you, interactions become more relaxed and authentic. You listen more carefully to others because you are no longer preoccupied with defending your own image. Conversations become less about proving yourself and more about genuine connection. Over time, you begin to notice something surprising. The more comfortable you become with not being understood by everyone, the more peaceful your life becomes. The emotional tension that once came from trying to control other people's opinions slowly disappears. In its place grows a quiet confidence that does not depend on constant approval. This does not mean you isolate yourself from others or stop caring about relationships. It simply means Your inner stability is no longer tied to how every person perceives you. You respect others' perspectives, but you do not allow those perspectives to define your sense of self. In many ways, this realization is a powerful form of emotional maturity. It allows you to move through life with authenticity instead of constant self-defense. You become less concerned with appearances and more focused on living according to your values. As this understanding deepens, you discover that peace grows naturally when you stop trying to control how every mind in the world interprets you. The need to be understood by everyone slowly fades, replaced by a quiet acceptance of life's diversity of perspectives. And in that calm acceptance, your mind becomes lighter. You speak honestly, act with awareness, and allow others to interpret your actions however they choose. Your peace no longer depends on convincing every person of your intentions, because true freedom begins the moment you stop trying to make every mind understand you and start simply living your truth with calm confidence. 10. The moment you stop fighting everything, peace begins. Many people live their entire lives in a constant state of resistance. They fight situations they cannot change. They fight people who refuse to understand them, and sometimes they even fight their own emotions. This invisible struggle slowly fills the mind with tension. Even when nothing dramatic is happening on the outside, there is an ongoing battle inside the mind that quietly drains a person's peace. From the moment something unpleasant happens, the mind immediately begins resisting it. When plans fail, the mind fights the disappointment. When someone behaves unfairly, the mind fights the anger. When life becomes uncertain, the mind fights the fear of the unknown. This reaction feels natural because people believe that resisting painful situations will somehow protect them. But in reality, constant resistance often multiplies the suffering rather than removing it. Buddhist teachings explain that much of human suffering does not come directly from events themselves, but from the way the mind reacts to those events. When something difficult happens, the mind quickly says, "This should not be happening." That single thought begins a long chain of frustration. Instead of simply facing the situation calmly, the mind becomes trapped in arguments with reality itself. Imagine standing in the middle of a strong river and trying to push the current backward with your hands. No matter how much strength you use, the river continues flowing in the same direction. The harder you fight it, the more exhausted you become. Fighting reality works in a similar way. Life continues moving forward regardless of how strongly we resist certain moments. This does not mean that difficult situations should be ignored or that people should never take action. Buddhism does not encourage passivity. Instead, it teaches the importance of responding with awareness rather than reacting with emotional resistance. There is a big difference between calmly addressing a situation and mentally fighting against it. When you stop fighting every uncomfortable experience, the mind begins to relax. Instead of constantly asking why things are happening or wishing reality were different, you begin accepting the moment as it is. Acceptance does not mean you approve of everything that happens. It simply means you stop arguing with the fact that it has already happened. This shift in perspective brings a powerful form of peace. The energy that was once used for resistance becomes available for clarity and wise action. Instead of wasting emotional strength on frustration, you begin focusing on what can actually be done in the present moment. For example, if someone criticizes you unfairly, the mind may immediately react with anger and defensiveness. You may replay the conversation repeatedly, imagining different ways you could have responded. But this mental struggle does not change the event that already occurred. It only prolongs the emotional disturbance within your mind. When you practice non-resistance, the situation appears differently. You observe what happened without immediately turning it into a battle. You recognize the criticism, but you do not allow it to consume your thoughts. If the criticism contains truth, you calmly learn from it. If it does not, you allow it to pass without carrying unnecessary resentment. The same principle applies to many areas of life. People often fight the passage of time, the changes in relationships, or the uncertainty of the future. They wish life would remain exactly as they want it, forgetting that change is one of the most natural aspects of existence. Buddhism teaches that suffering increases when we cling tightly to things that are constantly changing. Relationships evolve, circumstances shift, and even our own thoughts and emotions transform over time. When we insist that life must remain fixed according to our expectations, every change feels like a loss. But when we release this resistance, something remarkable happens. Change becomes less frightening. Instead of seeing it as an enemy, we begin recognizing it as part of the natural flow of life. The mind becomes more flexible and less trapped in rigid expectations. This flexibility creates emotional resilience. Difficult moments still appear, but they no longer destroy your inner balance in the same way. Instead of fighting against every challenge, you begin moving through life with calm awareness. Over time, you realize that peace does not come from controlling everything around you. It comes from mastering the way you relate to what happens. When the mind stops struggling against reality, a quiet clarity appears. In that clarity, problems become easier to understand, and solutions become easier to see. Many wise teachers throughout history have spoken about this principle in different ways. They remind us that the greatest battles we face are often the ones we create within our own minds. When we stop feeding those battles, our inner world becomes calmer. This understanding also changes how you experience daily life. Small inconveniences that once triggered frustration begin to feel less important. Delays, disagreements, and unexpected changes no longer dominate your emotional state. You observe them, respond wisely when necessary, and continue moving forward without unnecessary suffering. Gradually, you begin noticing something profound. The more you stop fighting every moment of life, the more peaceful your mind becomes. Situations that once felt overwhelming lose much of their emotional power. The mind becomes like still water, reflecting events clearly without becoming disturbed by every ripple. This calmness is not weakness. In fact, it is one of the strongest forms of inner stability a person can develop. When you are no longer constantly reacting to everything around you, you gain the ability to act with patience, wisdom, and balance. In the end, peace is not something that suddenly appears when life becomes perfect. Peace appears the moment you stop trying to force life into the shape of your expectations. When you release the endless struggle against reality, the mind naturally returns to a state of calm, and in that calm state, you discover a truth that Buddhism has always emphasized. The moment you stop fighting everything, peace quietly begins. 11. The calmer you become, the less power others have over you. One of the greatest sources of suffering in human life comes from emotional reactions. Someone says something hurtful, and immediately anger rises inside you. Someone criticizes your choices, and your mind begins defending itself. Someone behaves unfairly, and suddenly your peace disappears. In these moments, it feels as if other people have the power to control your emotions. Many people do not realize that every strong emotional reaction quietly hands over control of their peace to someone else. When another person's words or behavior instantly disturb your mind, your emotional state becomes dependent on their actions. If they are kind, you feel good. If they are disrespectful, your peace collapses. Without noticing it, your inner stability becomes controlled by forces outside yourself. Buddhist teachings emphasize a powerful truth about the mind. The calmer you become internally, the less influence other people's behavior has over your emotional world. Calmness creates a kind of inner space where reactions no longer dominate your thoughts. Instead of being pulled into every conflict or emotional situation, you begin observing events with clarity and patience. When the mind is calm, it becomes much harder for negativity to disturb it. Imagine throwing a stone into a shallow puddle. The water immediately splashes everywhere. But if you throw the same stone into a deep, still lake, the surface barely moves. A calm mind works in the same way. Small disturbances that once created emotional chaos begin to lose their impact. This does not mean that calm people feel nothing. They still experience emotions like anyone else. They may feel disappointment, sadness, or frustration at times. But the difference is that these emotions do not take control of their entire mind. They notice the emotion, understand it, and allow it to pass without becoming overwhelmed by it. Many conflicts in life grow because both people react emotionally at the same time. One person becomes angry, the other responds with equal anger, and the situation quickly escalates. Words become harsher, feelings become more intense, and the conflict continues expanding. But when one person remains calm, the entire dynamic changes. Calmness interrupts the cycle of emotional reaction. Instead of feeding the conflict, calm awareness allows the situation to settle naturally. This quiet strength often confuses people who expect emotional reactions. They may try to provoke you, but when they do not receive the response they expected, the tension slowly loses its energy. Buddhism teaches that developing this calmness is a form of inner mastery. It requires learning how to observe your thoughts and emotions instead of immediately acting on them. When someone says something upsetting, the mind may still feel the first spark of anger, but instead of reacting instantly, you pause. In that pause, awareness appears. That moment of awareness is extremely powerful. It allows you to choose your response instead of being controlled by your impulse. Instead of reacting with harsh words, you may choose silence. Instead of becoming defensive, you may simply listen and remain steady. Over time, practicing this calm awareness changes the way you experience relationships. Situations that once triggered strong reactions begin to feel easier to handle. The emotional storms that once disturbed your peace become shorter and less intense. As your calmness grows, you also begin noticing how much unnecessary drama exists in the world. Many people spend their lives reacting impulsively to everything around them. They argue over small misunderstandings, defend themselves against every criticism, and carry resentment long after conflicts have ended. When your mind becomes calmer, you naturally step outside this cycle. You become less interested in proving yourself in every conversation. You become less concerned with winning arguments that do not truly matter. Instead, you focus on maintaining your inner balance. This shift also changes the way others interact with you. When people realize that their negativity cannot easily disturb you, they often stop trying to provoke reactions. The calm presence you carry begins shaping the energy of your interactions. Conversations become more peaceful, and conflicts become less frequent. Buddhist practice often involves cultivating mindfulness through meditation or quiet reflection. These practices help train the mind to observe thoughts without becoming trapped in them. As this awareness deepens, emotional reactions lose much of their automatic power. Instead of being pushed around by every external situation, you develop a stable center within yourself. From this place of stability, you respond to life with clarity rather than impulsiveness. It is important to understand that calmness does not mean suppressing emotions. Suppression only hides emotions temporarily, allowing them to build pressure beneath the surface. True calmness comes from understanding emotions as temporary experiences rather than permanent states. When anger appears, you observe it instead of becoming it. When frustration arises, you recognize it without allowing it to control your behavior. Through this awareness, emotions pass through your mind like clouds passing through the sky. Over time, this practice transforms the way you move through life. Situations that once caused stress begin to feel manageable. Interactions that once created conflict become opportunities to practice patience and understanding. The greatest benefit of this calmness is the freedom it creates. When your peace no longer depends on how others behave, you gain independence from their emotional influence. Their words may still reach your ears, but they no longer control your mind. This freedom allows you to live with greater clarity and confidence. Instead of constantly defending yourself or reacting to every situation, you move through life with quiet stability. And gradually, you discover a powerful truth that Buddhist teachings have always emphasized. When your mind becomes calm, other people lose the power to disturb your peace. 12. The peace you protect today becomes the life you live tomorrow. Many people search for peace as if it is something that will suddenly appear one day in the future. They believe that when their problems disappear, when the right people enter their lives, or when circumstances finally improve, peace will naturally follow. But Buddhist wisdom teaches something very different. Peace is not something that simply arrives when life becomes perfect. Peace is something you create by the choices you make every day. Every day you make quiet decisions about what energy you allow into your life. You decide how much time you spend worrying about other people's opinions. You decide how long you allow toxic conversations to stay in your mind. You decide whether you hold on to anger or release it. These small decisions may feel unimportant in the moment, but over time they shape the entire direction of your life. Imagine planting a seed in the ground. At first, the seed is small and invisible beneath the soil. You cannot see the roots growing or the changes happening inside the earth. But slowly, day by day, the seed begins developing into something larger. Eventually, it breaks through the surface and becomes a visible plant. Your peace grows in the same way. The calm choices you make today slowly shape the life you will experience tomorrow. When you begin protecting your mind from unnecessary negativity, your thoughts gradually become clearer. When you stop engaging in constant arguments or emotional battles, your mind becomes quieter. These small acts of awareness slowly transform your daily experience. Many people underestimate the power of protecting their peace. They believe that reacting to every conflict or defending themselves in every situation is necessary. They feel obligated to answer every criticism, correct every misunderstanding, and fix every problem that appears around them. Over time, this constant reaction creates emotional exhaustion. Buddhism encourages a different approach. Instead of reacting to everything, you begin choosing carefully where your energy goes. You ask yourself whether a situation truly deserves your attention or whether it will only disturb your peace. This awareness allows you to step away from unnecessary conflict and focus on what truly matters. When you protect your peace consistently, something remarkable begins to happen. Your mind becomes less crowded with noise. Thoughts that once created anxiety slowly fade away. You begin experiencing moments of calm that once felt impossible in a busy and chaotic world. This calmness also changes the way you see life. When your mind is not constantly overwhelmed by stress or frustration, you begin noticing things that were once hidden beneath the noise of your thoughts. You become more present in conversations. You appreciate simple moments more deeply. Even ordinary experiences begin to feel more meaningful. Another important transformation happens within your relationships. When you protect your peace, you naturally become more selective about the people you allow close to you. You begin recognizing which relationships bring calmness and which ones repeatedly disturb your mind. This awareness does not mean rejecting people harshly or becoming distant from everyone. It simply means you start valuing your emotional well-being. You choose to spend more time with individuals who respect your energy and less time with those who constantly bring negativity into your life. Over time, the environment around you slowly changes. The more you protect your peace, the more your life begins attracting situations and relationships that support that peace. Calm people tend to attract calm environments. Balanced minds tend to create balanced lives. This transformation is not immediate. It grows gradually, just like the seed growing beneath the soil. At first, the changes may seem small. You may notice that you argue less often. You may notice that certain situations no longer upset you as much as they once did. But as these small shifts continue, they begin shaping your entire life. The future you experience tomorrow is being quietly created by the mental habits you practice today. If you constantly feed your mind with anger, resentment, and endless conflict, those emotions will shape your future experiences. But if you consistently protect your peace, your future begins developing a calmer and more balanced foundation. Buddhism teaches that awareness is the key to shaping this process. When you observe your thoughts and reactions carefully, you begin seeing how much influence your mind has over your life. Instead of living automatically, reacting to every emotion and situation, you begin living with intention. You begin asking yourself important questions. Does this situation deserve my peace? Is this argument worth my calmness? Will holding on to this resentment improve my life in any meaningful way? Often the answer becomes clear. Many of the things that once felt urgent or important are simply temporary disturbances. When you refuse to allow those disturbances to control your mind, your life becomes quieter and more stable. This stability is one of the greatest forms of freedom a person can develop. When your peace no longer depends on external chaos, you move through life with confidence and balance. Situations that once overwhelmed you become manageable because your mind remains steady. In the end, peace is not a distant destination that appears only after all problems disappear. Peace is a path that is created through daily awareness. Every moment you choose calmness over reaction, understanding over anger, and silence over unnecessary conflict, you are shaping the life you will live tomorrow. And as these choices continue growing within your life, you eventually realize a powerful truth. The peace you protect today slowly becomes the peaceful life you experience in the future. Life becomes much lighter the moment you stop trying to control everything around you. Many of the struggles people experience come from holding on too tightly to situations, people, and expectations that are simply beyond their control. They try to change others, fix every problem, and force life to unfold according to their plans. But the more they struggle, the more exhausted their minds become. Buddhist wisdom teaches a powerful truth. Peace is not found by controlling the world, but by understanding your mind. When you learn to detach from toxic people, release unhealthy expectations, and protect your inner calm, something remarkable begins to happen. The noise inside your mind slowly fades. The emotional storms that once controlled you lose their power. Detachment does not mean becoming cold, distant, or uncaring. It means becoming wise enough to understand where your responsibility ends and where another person's journey begins. You can still show kindness, compassion, and understanding toward others, but you no longer allow their behavior to steal your peace. As you practice these lessons, you begin noticing that your life becomes calmer and more balanced. Situations that once felt overwhelming become easier to handle. Conflicts that once consumed your energy begin to lose their importance. Instead of reacting to every disturbance, you learn to observe, understand, and move forward with calm awareness. True freedom begins when you stop trying to carry what was never yours to carry. It begins when you release the need to fix everyone, control every outcome, and prove yourself to every mind. The more you protect your peace, the stronger your inner world becomes. And eventually, you realize something that changes the way you live forever. Peace was never something you had to search for in the outside world. It was something you create the moment you learn to let go.